I should have known something felt off the second we pulled into that tiny, run-down motel just outside the Florida Everglades. The neon sign flickered like it was barely clinging to life. The only car in the lot was a rusted-out truck with no plates. But it was late, and after a full day of driving, none of us wanted to be picky. It was me, my best friend Eric, his girlfriend Jess, and her cousin Tyler. We were just looking for a cheap place to crash before heading to Miami the next morning. The guy at the front desk barely looked up when we walked in. His skin was leathery, his eyes sunken deep into his skull. And when he did speak, his voice was so low I had to lean in just to hear him. "Cash only," he muttered. We paid cash and got 2 rooms side by side. The motel smelled like mildew and something else, like rust, but sharper. I tried to shake it off, but that feeling, the one that told me something wasn't right, only got worse. Around 2 a.m., I woke up to the sound of shuffling outside our door. Slow footsteps. At first, I thought it was just Tyler coming back from getting a drink from the snack machine, or something like that, until I heard it. A click, then the quiet, deliberate sound of someone testing the doorknob. I sat up so fast my heart nearly exploded in my chest. Eric was still asleep, completely oblivious. I held my breath, straining my ears. The doorknob jiggled again, harder this time, followed by a soft scrape, metal against metal. Someone was picking the lock. I launched out of bed and shook Eric awake. He groggily sat up just as the lock clicked open. My stomach dropped. Without thinking, I lunged forward and slammed my body against the door just as it started to push inward. There was a grunt from the other side, then silence. Then the door next to us, Jess and Tyler's room. I heard Jess scream. Eric and I bolted outside just in time to see a figure stepping into their room. He was tall, thin, dressed in all black, and holding something in his hand, something long and sharp. Tyler was already up, shoving Jess behind him as the guy lunged forward. I don't know what took over me. I grabbed the closest thing, a metal trash can from the walkway, and threw it as hard as I could. It hit the guy in the back with a loud clang. He twisted around, and for the first time, I saw his face. Pale, gaunt, eyes wide and unblinking, like he hadn't slept in weeks. His lips curled into this unnatural, sick grin, and then he whispered something, too soft for me to hear, before bolting out the door and disappearing into the night. We didn't waste a second. We grabbed our bags, ran to the car, and tore out of that parking lot so fast I don't even remember buckling my seatbelt. We called the cops, but by the time they arrived, the motel was empty. The front desk guy was gone. The place looked abandoned, like no one had been there for years. But here's the part that still haunts me. A few days later, we found a news article. That same motel, a couple had been murdered there exactly 1 year before. Same weekend, same room. No suspect was ever caught. And the description the witness gave of the killer? Tall, thin, dressed in black, smiling. Spring break was supposed to be simple. 5 days at a lake house. Just me and my 3 best friends, Danny, Alex, and Serena. Serena's uncle had this old cabin out in the woods near Lake Lanier, and he let us use it for free. Isolated, quiet, perfect for a getaway. The first night was great, grilling outside, blasting music, drinking by the fire. But that second night, That's when things went south. It started with the knocking. Faint at first, like branches tapping against the window. When Alex went to check, there were no trees near that side of the cabin, just darkness. Then came the whispers. I was brushing my teeth when I heard them, so soft I thought I imagined it. A woman's voice right outside the bathroom window saying my name. I froze. Serena? I called out, no response. By the time I got to the living room, everyone else had heard it too. Danny locked the doors. Probably some local kid messing with us, he said, trying to sound confident. But I could see it in his eyes. He wasn't so sure. That night, none of us slept well. Around 3 a.m., I woke up to what sounded like footsteps circling the cabin. Like whoever or whatever it was wanted to know that they were outside. The next morning, we found footprints in the dirt, barefoot, too large to be any of ours. We should have left right then and there. We should have packed our bags and gotten out of there. But we convinced ourselves it was just nothing. That was a big mistake. That night, Serena screamed. We ran to her room and found her standing in the corner, shaking. There was a face in the window. She told us. Danny and Alex grabbed a flashlight and stormed outside. I stayed behind with Serena, trying to calm her down. A few minutes passed, then, bang, a gunshot. I sprinted outside just as Danny and Alex came running back, pale as ghosts. There was someone out there. Danny shot him, but he just ran into the trees. We didn't wait any longer. We grabbed our things, jumped in the car, and sped off. The worst part? The next day, Serena's uncle called. Said he'd been meaning to warn us. People who had stayed at that cabin always left early. Said some of them saw something in the woods. Said none of them ever came back. And we didn't either. Spring break in Arizona wasn't our first choice. But after our Cancun plans fell through, a road trip to the Grand Canyon seemed like a solid backup. It was me, my best friend Jake, his sister Haley, and our buddy Mark. We packed up my SUV, loaded a cooler with drinks, and hit the road. The plan was to camp near the canyon for a night before heading to Vegas. We had maps, GPS, plenty of gas. What could go wrong? Somewhere along the way, we took a wrong turn. A dirt road led us deep into the desert, far from any main highway. The sun was setting, and our GPS stopped working. No signal, just miles of empty land stretching in every direction. Then we saw it. An old gas station, flickering lights, a rusted-out truck in the lot, and a faded sign that just said, "Last stop." We pulled in, figuring we could ask for directions. The second we stepped inside, the air felt off, stale, heavy. The place looked abandoned, but the shelves were stocked. Cans of food, dusty bottles of soda. A single light buzzed overhead. Then a voice. "You kids lost?" An old man stood behind the counter. His face was deeply lined, his yellowed eyes fixed on us like he'd been expecting us. "Yeah, we're trying to get back to the highway," Jake said. The man didn't blink, just pointed at the fridge. "Take some water, free of charge." None of us moved. The way he was staring, the way the whole place felt, it was wrong. Mark cleared his throat. "We're good, we just need some directions, please." The man's expression didn't change, but he finally spoke. "Go back the way you came." Don't stop. Don't turn around. And if you see someone on the road, do not pick them up. A chill ran down our spines. We didn't ask any questions. We just left. As we sped down the dirt road, silence filled the car. No one wanted to admit how creeped out we were. Then, all of a sudden, in the headlights, there was a woman standing in the middle of the road. Her clothes were torn, her hair covering her face. She raised one hand, like she was begging for us to stop. Haley gasped. "We have to help her." Mark gripped my arm. "No, keep driving." Every instinct told me to stop, but I couldn't shake what that old man told us. I swerved around her. My heart pounded as we sped away, dust kicking up behind us. I glanced in the rearview mirror. She was gone. Not walking, not running, just gone. That's when the scratching started. Long, slow scrapes along the roof of the car. Haley screamed. Jake yelled at me to floor it. Then, bang! Something slammed into the back of our SUV. The whole car lurched. I nearly lost control. I didn't look back. I didn't stop. We finally hit pavement an hour later, breathless, shaking. We pulled into a gas station, one that actually looked normal this time, and checked the car. Long, deep claw marks ran across the roof. Something had been up there. We never spoke about it again, never told anyone. But sometimes late at night, I wonder, what would have happened if we stopped to pick up that lady?